R.E.C.I.C.L.E is a European voluntary service project supported by the British Council and Youth in Action programme of the European Commission. To which 30 international volunteers came to the UK to work at Leeds Festival alongside the Green Messengers to promote recycling. I'm on it, get on it, the troops are on fire, you know I need it much closer, I'm treading. So 2 years ago we did a youth exchange at Leeds Festival where young people came to recycle bottles and cans and salvage camping equipment. It worked really well and we thought it would be just as good, if not better, to give young people, disadvantaged young people, an opportunity to do a short-term EVS project. In March 2012 we invited all of the partners on the application to come for an advanced planning visit in Leeds. We talked about what the project would mean, we talked about what the volunteers would do, we talked about their living conditions and their food, challenges they might face and what the best way to prepare them. I would like for you to choose people who are unemployed maybe, who are geographically disadvantaged, maybe they live in the countryside and there's not much opportunity for them, maybe they are of an ethnic... We also invited some of the volunteers along who would be leading their individual groups. Collecting just cans and just bottles, nothing dirty, nothing that looks suspicious. After the APV, partners started to recruit the volunteers and to prepare them. They prepared them really well with information about what would be their tasks, as well as the living conditions. And as well, we had a blog and live information with videos and pictures promoting past projects that we'd done, to give a realistic view of what the project would be. So volunteers arrived on the 18th of August 2012. We got settled in the campsite just close to Leeds and we did some on-arrival training and some team building activities, as most of the volunteers had met each other before, and we did some raft building and some climbing, and they visited York. During the festival they were recycling cans and bottles, collecting them from the campsites and from around the arena area and talking to people and asking them to recycle for themselves. Most volunteers really enjoyed the work. Most volunteers were surprised by how much work there was to do and how much recycling was being done or not being done by the festival goers. Providing food for the volunteers was a challenge for Everything Possible. Our budget for the food was just under €5 per day, which when you look at how much a meal costs at the festival, it's about £8 per meal. So with the budget that we had, we really had to make it stretch by being creative. We had very limited electricity, as you can imagine, on a campsite. So we had just enough for a toaster, a kettle, 2 microwaves. So we provided some frozen meals, we could make some baked potatoes, we had toast and coffee for breakfast, we had buffets, we had sandwiches, we had some cakes, and we tried to do the best with the budget that we had. We were aware that camping would be a challenge for most of the volunteers, especially for 2 weeks, and most of them hadn't stayed in a tent before, so we made sure that we prepared the partners to give the volunteers, before they came, a decent preparation so that they were aware that they were going to be staying in a tent for 2 weeks. But it was still cold and still wet, as you can expect in the UK. And while the living conditions and the weather and the food were difficult, volunteers still had the opportunity, just like the paying customers at the festival, to go and access all the festival activities, such as the music and the bands and the entertainment, which was a real positive. A big part of the festival project was the salvage. Afterwards, volunteers helped us to collect camping equipment, tents and sleeping bags, roll mats, wellies, all sorts of stuff that people had left behind. And we had to do this, of course, during the rain, and it was a really difficult part of the project. Volunteers told us that they found it really difficult to do this, especially because they're not used to working in the rain, a lot of them. So it was really hard to motivate people, and sometimes we'd find volunteers hiding in a tent or they'd be sleeping back at the campsite, and we had to really try and motivate them well to get them to come out and to help us with the project. But It was a big success. We got a lot of equipment, a lot of tents and everything that we were looking for, so it was perfect. And so all the stuff that we salvaged got donated back to the community, to homelessness charities and to church groups, scout groups, youth groups and stuff like that, and to local people who wanted to just buy some camping equipment for a very small price. This year we really wanted to promote the project, so we released 2 press releases, one before and one during the project. Because last year we had BBC TV who did an article on the project, which was great. So this year we had 14 press articles, 6 radio interviews and 169 tweets promoting the work that we were doing. We even had BBC Radio who came to do live coverage of the salvage and interview participants. Also, some of our partners did some promotion on the radio in Italy, for example. Organising a project on this scale is a huge challenge, with the amount of people that were coming, the fact that we were out in the middle of nowhere, sleeping in a field, in a huge event with about 80,000 people were there. The organisation of it was difficult. But I think we achieved exactly what we set out to achieve. That hundreds of articles of camping equipment were donated to local communities. We were able to promote the projects that we do by not only in the press but also by the volunteers that we had here speaking to local people that were at the festival and answering questions about how they got here. It had a huge impact. We had the opportunity to work with new partners that we hadn't worked with before, and we will be working with them in the future. The volunteers faced as many challenges as the organisers, and the feedback during the project was mixed. Some of it was really positive and some of it was really negative. People found it hard to live away from home and work hard in the rain. We decided to do a survey after the project finished, giving some people some time to think about the impact it had on their lives, and the feedback is a lot more positive 2 months after the event than it was at the time. I hope we succeeded in increasing the consciousness about volunteers and knowledge about recycling and the impact that they can have as individuals, and that they take that knowledge back home with them and a bit more mindful about the things that they throw away.